What's up, everyone? This is Bill with BLR Tuning. Today's watch is a Invicta Sub Aqua. It does have some teak green wood on the inside and on the outside with the stainless steel, Swiss made, rubber band on it. Really nice watch. Anyway, today we got a little video for you guys. This is our Dynojet Afr gauge for WB2. So WB2 is wideband with auto tune. We did an install on the ZH2, and we have Dynojet carries Afr gauges, so that's what we'll have available on our website is the Dynojet Afr gauge. This is the black face, so it's a digital Afr gauge, and then we made our own mounting systems for them. So you'll be able to purchase on our website. This kit right here would be for the ZH2. This comes in the box. This is for other types of mounts for a Afr gauge. So it will be in the box. It comes with this Afr gauge, but we will not be using it. Okay, so this specific kit that you're seeing right here would be for the ZH2, but you'll be able to buy it just like that right there, or just the Afr gauge. Okay, it is your standard size Afr gauge. You can get these the way they would mount. Obviously, you can screw into this. It's plastic. You could screw into the back of it if you had to. It does have a port here for the plug. So you can see there, it'll have a little rectangle plug that'll come off the WB2 and get plugged in there. And then it has holes that are for these studs to go through. So the best way to mount this for our pod system here is we're going to take these little nuts off of here. They're very tiny. You can just use like a needle nose plier or something like that to get them off. Pretty simple. Don't over tighten them. They are going onto a circuit board. Okay. But we will remove one at a time. Remove one. Leave the locking washer on there. And then add one of these studs to it. Each stud has a nut and washer to go with it. Okay. So, and then do the other side. And get those studs on there, and then those studs will protrude through the back of here. That gives you enough mounting depth to also slide this gauge over, and you'll see how this gauge holder, this gauge mount, you'll see how it works on the ZH2. So it'll be like that. And then the nuts would go on here. You're going to use a little bit of blue Loctite, and then just crimp them down. Remember, don't over tighten them. You're digging into plastic, but you want it to sink in just a little bit. So it puts a little pressure on that plastic with some blue Loctite. So that's how it'll sit. And then I'll show you on the bike what that looks like. Again, you'll find this all on our website, BLRTUNING.TECH. If you want an Afr gauge for your Power Commander 6 or Power Commander 5 on your ZH2. Okay, we have PC6 on here with the WB2. And then WB2 will be on our website, and you'll see it all as a kit also. WB2, Afr gauge, and the mounting system. It'll all be sold as a kit specifically for the ZH2. Okay, so let me get these off here and put the studs on and show you how that looks. And that will give you an idea as to how this is going to mount, or how you would mount your own mounting system if you wanted just an Afr gauge with a pod that is very small. This is we made it as small as we could and as tight as we could. You can see the gauge itself is actually just a hair bigger around, about almost close to the same size, about a 0.5 millimeter. Maybe not even that, maybe 1/4 millimeter, the face of the gauge. So when you look at it from the front like this, all you see is the gauge. So it's about one of the smallest pods that I've seen yet, and that was the goal, is to fit something very small, very discreet, as small as we could, and make it look, you know, like it's supposed to be on this ZH2. And then you'll see it does have a pinhole here. That's a drain plug just in case water gets in there or anything. So it has somewhere to go. So there's how it sits. And then when you line up the studs, you can see in there, you have a perfect spot to be able to plug it in. So you can pull it out, you can plug it in, and then feed your wire back through, run your studs and your nuts and bolts. Okay, so we want to make it as universal as we could also, but this kit we're going to be installing today will be for the ZH2. We're going to try to come out with more mounting brackets for other bikes as well. But for right now, we're going to focus on the ZH2. So you can see I got that one nut off, and we're using just a tiny drop of blue Loctite, just so this stud can't go nowhere. And then our stud's going to screw on. We still have that lock washer there. So this is going to screw on. And we're going to give it just a little turn with some needle nose pliers. Nothing crazy. We don't want to break it. There we go. That's on there. It ain't going nowhere. Now we'll loosen up that other side and get that other stud on. Remember, one little drop of blue Loctite is plenty. There is switches in here. The switches are for running 10 volt or 5 volt, and then they also have a switch in there for the sound on or off, so it will chime when you power up the bike. We have both of those switches in the upward position for the WB2. You can turn switch number 2 off if you don't want it to make any noise. Okay. Our pod system does allow us to get to that plug while it's mounted in here. You can set it in there and plug it in, but if you can't, what you're going to need to do is run your wire through here, plug it in, and then stick this guy in there. Okay, and you'll see it lines up perfect, snug fit, it doesn't move. There's no, like I'm just holding onto the pod, there's no rattle, it is a perfect fit every single time. And these will all be test fitted before you even get them also, to make sure that we're putting out the highest quality thing that we can. Okay, for our ZH2 bracket, we're going to leave those off. We're not going to be using these little tiny nuts. Okay, see if the camera is going to show that. Let me turn on the light here. Okay, so it'll sit like this. Okay, this would be the front. And the gauge, we want AFR, we want it the right way up, is going to slide into these holes. Okay, so hold your gauge in there and your pod, your mounted, and then it has enough wiggle room to where you can fine adjust. Same with these holes. They're just a little bit bigger than the factory holes on the bike, or factory bolts on the bike. So you have enough wiggle room to get it centered up where you want it. And then these nuts, you're going to use a little bit drop of blue Loctite again. And then these nuts are going to go on the back here, like so. We're not going to use the washer. Instead, we're just going to use a pair of pliers, and we're going to grab it and just twist it down till it just barely digs into that plastic. And that's going to keep it on there. That plastic will act like a spring, keeping pressure on that nut, and a little drop of blue Loctite. It ain't going nowhere. And then you can see there, you'll be able to get to your plug. And this is going to sit right next to your display. Perfect fit on the ZH2. 2023 Kawasaki ZH2 SE. This is Athena, and that is what we nicknamed it. So you can see when we did our WB2 install, we did run our AFR gauge wire all the way up here. We do have some dielectric grease on it to protect it from corrosion and water and whatnot. So our AFR gauge is going to sit right here, and you're going to be able to see it right here. So what you need to do first is remove these four 4mm bolts, and then underneath that you're going to see the bolts that hold the gauge down. Those are going to be 5mm. So let me get these off and then show you those bolts. Okay, guys, so we got the 4mm bolts out. Okay, and now you see you have a 5mm bolt here and here. These do have some thick Loctite on them, at least these ones did. So just take your time getting them out. Don't strip the head, and take an air compressor and blow out that hole, or make sure it's cleaned out before you insert them again, and use just a drop of blue Loctite on the threads. Okay, and you don't need to unplug the gauge or anything like that. It is on a rubber tab down here that will move around or pull out if you pull forward towards the tank. So we'll get these out, and then I'll show you that part of it. Okay, so you can see what I'm saying here. We got those out. This is just on a rubber grommet. So if you pop it forward sideways, you see it just came off the rubber grommet. You'll be able to lift it up out of your way. So our gauge holder for the ZH2, you can grab that. Remember, I still have these little guys loose They do have blue Loctite on them, but they're loose because we want to be able to move things around a little bit. But it is going to sit like this. Okay, and then we'll put our gauge back on over the top of it. It's going to prop your gauge up the thickness of that, okay? Here, remember, we are going to use some blue Loctite on the threads of those bolts. Your AFR gauge is going to sit in there like that. So you're going to get your gauge back down tight. Don't over tighten it. And then get this situated. You can see it will move around just a little bit. Get it situated where you want. It shouldn't be touching anything. It shouldn't be touching the gauge, and it should not be touching this hose for the brake. So then we will adjust the angle of the gauge where we want it. We can turn it just a little bit back and forth, and we'll tighten those screws down last. Okay, and then we'll put our windscreen back on. So let me get this situated and come back. Okay, so you see there, we got it installed. So you can see how it looks. So here's if you're sitting on the bike. When you power it on, you'll hear it. That is the wideband coming on, or that's our AFR gauge. That's the noise, the alarm that it makes. So if we just let it sit here, everything is on. The O2 sensor is going to heat up. If we start the bike, it's going to be loud, but if we start the bike, you'll see the AFR gauge just kind of sit there and hang. It's waiting. I think it's on a 90-second timer or so, something like that. You can set these parameters up in the Dynojet PowerCore software in C3. And when you order a setup from us, it's already all set up out of the box. So just keep that in mind as well. But if you order it somewhere else, we can help you set it up. You can reach out to us. You look at the bottom of our website, BLRTUNING.TECH. You'll see a contact us button. We're always willing to help. But you can see that the gauge is not touching anything at all the way around it. Nothing interfering with it. It can move around a little bit, which gives it a little bit of flex, so it's not just going to snap in half. We'll start the bike. Hopefully you guys can see that on camera there. It is lit up blue. There it goes. It's past its timer. And you can see it working there. So you can see it's monitoring AFR. Now we can set up auto tune. We can do all kinds of stuff with the wideband installed. But we want to have an AFR gauge on this bike. It's boosted. We want to be able to make sure. We want to be able to make sure that we have something that we can monitor physically when we're riding the bike. If we can look down and see that it's running lean, we potentially could save the bike before, you know, we destroy it. So, good idea to have an AFR gauge. And this is a great alternative. You can't even tell that the gauge was lifted at all. It doesn't interfere with nothing. Like I said, we are clamped down on that plastic in there. So, nothing's going anywhere. Clean look. But you can go check it out, BLRTUNING.TECH. Again, we have wideband and PC6 under the seat to make that AFR gauge work. Like I said, go check it out, BLRTUNING.TECH. You'll see a ZH2 section. You'll see our wideband section. We have all kinds of options for many different vehicles. Okay. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Hope I catch you guys in the next one. Peace. Hopefully this video helps somebody out.